You ever watch a horror movie and just know there's gotta be some messed up stuff they didn't show you? Like stuff that even the people who make horror movies for a living went, nah, that's a bit much, even for us. Well, Final Destination is basically the king of that. We're talking about the goriest, most why would they even film that deleted deaths that'll make you wonder if the editors just needed a stiff drink and a long vacation. So first up, let's talk about the OG, the one that started it all, the first Final Destination. And specifically, let's talk about our boy, Alex Browning. You know Alex, he had the bad haircut, the constant look of did I leave the stove on, or is Death trying to impale me with a flagpole? Turns out in one early version of the movie, Death was leaning heavily towards the impale with a flagpole side of things. Or well, something equally as toasty if you catch my drift. In this alternate ending they actually filmed, Alex doesn't just like heroically save Clear and get a bit singed. Oh no, he goes full on human marshmallow. He's trying to save Clear from a car that's basically become a death trap. Live wires, gasoline, the whole 9 yards. And in this version, he gets zapped and then just catches fire. And not like a quick whoosh, she's gone fire. We're talking about a slow, agonizing, Clear has to watch her boyfriend turn into a well-done steak kind of fire. He's literally clutching the live cable as long as this goes on, which, you know, commitment or like electroshock forces you to do that, but I'm gonna go with commitment for the bit. Now, why did they cut this? Why deprive us of Alex's crispy moment? Well, apparently test audiences, those magical mystery people who decide if a movie is too soft or if there's not enough explosions, thought it was, and I quote, too soft. Yeah, watching the main guy slowly burn to death was too soft. I don't know what kind of focus groups they were running. Maybe they were all like metalheads or something, but okay. They also said it didn't have enough punch. Which I mean, I feel like being on fire is a pretty significant punch, but what do I know? I just talk into a microphone in a room that's probably haunted. What even is a YouTube channel? I'm speaking to the voices in my head. That's what you are. You're just a voice in my head. Stop screaming at me! The studio wanted something with more oomph, more pizzazz, so instead we got the theatrical ending where Carter gets suddenly flattened by a giant sign in Paris, which to be fair does have a certain je ne sais quoi of sudden unexpected squishing. If you're impressed by my French there, I should have you know I am Canadian. They teach us French there. I'm gonna teach you some French right now. Je m'appelle un baguette. That means, hello, my name is. So if you ever want to impress a date or something and say you know French, just be like, je m'appelle un baguette. And they'll like obviously be super in love with you because it's like the romance language or whatever. I don't know. I've used that hundreds of times. It's worked once. Anyways, keeping Alex alive meant, hey, maybe we could have him come back for a sequel. But spoilers, Devon Sawa, the actor, was like, nah, no more of that, bro, I'm good. So that plan went out the window for Final Destination 2, and we see him die because of a newspaper in like a little clipping, which is pretty boring in my opinion, so I wish they would have went with the original ending. So Alex almost got turned into a Human Torch, which is, you know, a Tuesday for this franchise. But if you thought that was wild, wait until you hear about the baby they almost threw into this whole death trap. So you know how in movies sometimes they add a kid or a pregnancy to like raise the stakes, make you care more? Well, the first Final Destination decided to dabble in that, and it went about as well as you'd expect when death is your main character of your movie. They had this whole subplot where Clear Rivers, Alex's sort of girlfriend side piece thingy-majiggy, gets pregnant with Alex's baby. Yeah, let that sink in. There were actual scenes filmed for this, like Clear looking at a positive pregnancy test with like all the joy of someone who just finished high school can possibly get looking at a positive pregnancy test. Then fast forward 9 months after Alex's alternate fiery demise, and boom, Clear's giving birth. They even named the kid Alexander Alex Chance Browning. Chance, get it? Subtle. Like a sledgehammer to the kneecap, subtle. There was even a line where Clear says she felt Alex pass through her during the birth, which is it's a choice of words. It's definitely a choice. Moving on, it didn't stop there. There was another scene with Carter, Clear, and baby Alex Jr. visiting the memorial for the Flight 180 victims. Real heartwarming stuff. You know, just a casual family outing to remember all the people who exploded on a plane, while you're holding the baby who might be the next on death's hit list. They even had a bit in a nursery where Clear's looking at a photo of her and OG Alex. A gust of wind blows through because nothing says impending doom like a gentle breeze in a baby's room. It basically was like a nod that death's gonna kill the baby, which is pretty grim if you ask me, but the newest Final Destination movie had a kid die in it, so I don't know. So why did this whole baby arc storyline get the axe? Surprise, surprise, those same test audiences who thought Alex burning alive was too soft also thought a pregnant teen and a baby were also too soft, and like tonally weird for a movie where people are getting impaled by flagpoles and decapitated by trains. Go figure. It also kind of muddied the whole death is inescapable thing if you've got a new life defeats death angle happening right out of the gate. Plus, let's be honest, the romance between Alex and Clear in the movie we actually got was about as developed as my mental functioning when I was 25. So, you know, go figure. So basically, a surprise baby felt a little out of left field, or, you know, out of a flaming car wreck, depending on which ending you're talking about. Some of you are probably breathing a sigh of relief that they cut this, and yeah, probably for the best. They dodged a bullet there, because honestly, this is probably too early in society to have a baby be in a movie like this, but who knows? A baby dodging death? Yeah, they decided that was a bit much. But what about a ghost that weaponizes its own, insides? Because apparently that was on the table at one point. Let's stick with the first Final Destination for a hot minute. Remember Terry Chaney? She was the one who, in the movie we all saw, had a really bad day involving a bus. Like splat kind of bad day. Well, before she met her end via aggressive public transformation, the writers apparently cooked up a different and frankly much grosser way for her to contribute to the plot. After she died, of course. According to Jeffrey Riddick, the guy who basically dreamed up this whole franchise, probably after eating mystery meat on a Tuesday, I'm guessing, there was an early idea where Terry comes back, not as like a friendly ghost who helps solve crimes or anything. No, she was going to return as, and I'm quoting here, a bulimic ghost. Yeah, you heard that right. A bulimic ghost. I'll just let that marinate for a second. I don't know if that's offensive or just deeply strange. Probably both. So what does a bulimic ghost do, you ask? Well, excellent question, you there sitting at home watching this video on your TV. You should pull out your phone and like this video and subscribe to the channel, because it's the only way this content gets pushed out. But I'm glad you asked, because apparently her spectral form would have shown up and then, get ready for this, she would have vomited her own intestines out as a scare tactic to frighten Carter Horton, the resident jerk of the group, into jumping in front of an oncoming subway train. So instead of death using like a loose bolt or like a slippery puddle, it was going to use a spooky ghost that puked up her intestines like they were bad spaghetti noodles. That's innovative in a never ever do that kind of way. Now, this particular nightmare fuel never got actually filmed, and the reasons why are pretty obvious. For one, it's disgusting. Like on a whole new level of I need to bleach my brain disgusting, but also it kind of messes with the whole vibe of Final Destination, doesn't it? The scary thing about these movies is that death is invisible. It's the environment, it's the bad luck. It's a series of unfortunate events that could theoretically happen to anyone. It's not usually a see-through lady projectile vomiting her insides at you. That's a different kind of horror movie. That's the kind of horror movie you watch on a dare and then immediately regret all your life choices. The studio was already a bit nervous about having a bad guy you couldn't even see. Imagine pitching them that. So the bad guy is still invisible, mostly, but sometimes one of the dead teenagers shows up as a ghost who pukes up her guts to make another teenager die. I bet that meeting was short. So yeah, they decided to stick with the more subtle, less organy approach to death's designs. Probably a good call. Some ideas are best left on the cutting room floor, as my parents have told me much when I was younger. Or in this case, maybe just flush directly down the toilet no. Okay, so puking ghost was a no-go, but imagine a birthday party where the cake doesn't just give you cavities, it gives you a one-way ticket to the afterlife, because that's where we're heading next. So Final Destination 2, this is the one with the giant log truck pileup that made everyone scared of driving behind log trucks for like a decade. I never really understood this. I like to drive closer to log trucks because of this movie. Yeah, I'm built different. Y'all ain't like me. But anyways, later in the movie, we end up in a hospital. Hospitals in horror movies are never good news. It's like a rule. If you're in a horror movie and you go to a hospital, you're probably not leaving with a lollipop and a get well soon card. Now, in the version we saw, Clear Rivers, yeah, she's back if you haven't seen the movie, no baby this time, thankfully, and Eugene Dix, funny last name, another survivor, meet a rather fiery end involving an oxygen tank and some unfortunate sparks. Standard hospital stuff. But there was another version of this scene, a version that involved a birthday cake and a person named Trevor. Poor Trevor. In this alternate and frankly kind of crazy sequence, Trevor walks up to Clear. He's got a birthday cake, candles all lit, looking like he's about to sing happy birthday. He asks Clear to hold the cake. Now, in a normal movie, this would be like a sweet moment. Maybe it's for another patient, maybe Trevor's just a really nice guy who likes cake, but this is Final Destination. So naturally, the lit candles on this innocent looking birthday cake were supposed to ignite an explosion in Eugene's oxygen-rich hospital room. Kaboom. Just like that, Trevor, Clear, and Eugene all go up in a puff of boom. Clear would have been incinerated, Eugene gets blasted with a shrapnel. Happy birthday, everybody. They even have behind the scenes photos of this. Trevor's there, cake in hand. It was this whole thing. So why did they scrap this scene? Well, apparently even for Final Destination, it was considered silly. Yeah, a franchise that has people getting killed by falling fire escapes, rogue pool drains, and malfunctioning tanning beds drew the line at death by birthday cake. It was also seen as a pretty lame way for Clear, a legacy character, to go out, incinerated by a cake. Not exactly a hero's end. Plus, there was a logic problem. Trevor, the guy that just worked there, not on Death's list. So killing him off in this Ruby Goldberg machine didn't really fit the rules. Death is usually pretty particular about sticking to the guest list. It's like, sorry Trevor, wrong place, wrong time, wrong cake. So they went with the more straightforward oxygen tank explosion. No Trevor, no cake, just good old fashioned, not enough funding for your public healthcare system. Now, some of you are probably thinking, I kind of wanted to see the cake explosion. And yeah, small part of me does too, just for the sheer absurdity. But I get it. In a movie like this, you gotta be somewhat serious, even when you're being killed by an invisible death. So moving on to Final Destination 3, this is the one with the roller coaster, The Devil's Flight. Sounds like a good time, right? Wrong. So very, very wrong. But what made this movie unique, especially when it hit DVD, was this crazy feature called Choose Their Fate. Yeah, they literally let you, the viewer, sitting on your couch, probably eating stale potato chips, make choices that changed who lived, who died, and how ridiculously they bit the dust. It was like those old choose your own adventure books that I loved and I read all the time, but more death. Although if you read the Goosebumps ones, if you know what I'm talking about, those involved a lot of death too, and those are pretty good. Now, these weren't technically deleted scenes, so don't like come at me in the comments in the traditional sense, but it's still interesting. So let me make my video, please. They filmed all this extra stuff specifically for the DVD. And if you're too young to understand what a DVD was, because likely some of you are, and I don't know if you should be watching my videos, but it wasn't just the movie like on streaming. You get a remote and you can click through like bonus features, and sometimes they had games that you could play on your remote or like behind the scenes stuff. It was basically a way to justify selling the movie for like a ton of money. Anyways, so let's start with the big one. In the movie, Jason and Kevin do a coin flip. Jason calls heads, wins, and they all get on the death trap. But if you, the all-powerful viewer, chose tails during that coin flip, bam, Wendy, our psychic hero of the hour, snatches the coin mid-air. She has her freak out and they all get off the ride before it turns into this giant twisted metal pretzel. And then the movie just kind of ends. On-screen text pops up saying, yup, they all lived. The end. It's like 5 minutes long. That is the most unsatisfying horror movie experience ever. You paid for carnage, blood, and death, and you got teenagers making responsible decisions, which, let's be honest, that's not very true at all. What a ripoff. Some of you are probably thinking right now, that's the ending I would have chosen because that's a better movie for me. And you're a monster. You're an absolute thrill-avoiding monster, and you should be taken out back. This is a channel that talks about horror movies. We're not having 5-minute movies, not happening. But don't worry, if you wanted more creative demises, Choose Their Fate had you covered. Take Ashlyn and Ashley, the tanning bed twins. In the movie, they get trapped and well cooked. Extra spicy, extra crispy. But in one alternate path, if you had Ashlyn set the tanning bed temperature a little differently, things go down another equally unpleasant road. Ashlyn manages to get out of her bed, but then gets knocked out by that falling shelf. She comes to, frees Ashley, but then Ashley falls through the busted bed and gets electrocuted. And then, because misery loves company, the electricity travels through Ashley into Ashlyn and zaps her too. So instead of baked, they get fried. Yeah, something tells me Kentucky Fried Chicken designed this scene for some reason. So you could technically save everyone in Final Destination 3 with a coin flip, which was boring. But what if instead of burning in a tanning bed like the other scene, you got zapped? Well, the options were, let's say, varied. Let's talk about Frankie Cheaters. Frankie, what a name. Sounds like a guy who likes to stick his feet in beans. If there's any Frankies watching, they know what I'm talking about. We know you do it. The movie we all saw, Frankie meets a gruesome end involving a runaway truck's engine fan. Head meets spinning blades of doom. It's not pretty. It's like a really aggressive smoothie, but with, you know, Frankie's head. But thanks to the magic of interactive DVD technology, Frankie didn't have to become a human slushie. If Wendy, our psychic protagonist, decided to honk her horn an extra time at the drive-thru, because apparently Horn honking frequency is a key factor in Death's designs. Things could have gone very differently for old Frankie. In this alternate timeline, Frankie turns around, sees Wendy and Kevin, being the surprisingly athletic hero he sometimes is, manages to pull Frankie to safety. Hooray, Frankie's alive. Oh wait, there's more, because this is Final Destination, and living happily ever after isn't really in the vocabulary. So in the next scene, we see Frankie on a stretcher, not dead, but definitely looking forward to a massive lawsuit. But then as Kevin and Wendy are leaving the police station later, who do they see getting dragged out of a cop car? Frankie. Turns out our boy got arrested for soliciting an undercover officer. So he cheats death by engine fan, only to get busted for trying to, make friends with a cop that's undercover. Then there's Luis Romero, the gym bro. In the theatrical cut, he gets his head crushed by a Bowflex type weight machine after a pretty tense buildup. It's one of those classic Final Destination kills where you see all the little things go wrong and you're just yelling at the screen, dude, just stop lifting, it's not worth it. But in the Choose Their Fate version, if Wendy decides to look at Lewis's creepy carnival photo again, because apparently staring at ominous photos is a valid survival strategy, the gym scene gets way shorter. Wendy and Kevin show up to warn him, and Lewis is already using the death machine. He just yells, "Fisher, what the f are you doing here?" And then crunch, head goes pop. No buildup, no tension, just instant gym death. Frankie's alternate death was less messy, but way more awkward. Now imagine surviving one of these movies only to get taken out by a wood chipper. The newspaper clippings don't lie. Or do they? So you remember Erin Ulmer? She's the one who, in the theatrical cut, meets her end in a hardware store after slipping on some spilled washer fluid and falling onto a nail gun. It's a pretty gnarly way to go, like a really bad acupuncture session. But if you, the viewer, made a different choice earlier in the movie, specifically if you had Ian McKinley, her boyfriend, fire a warning shot at some pigeons instead of, actually hitting them, then Erin's demise gets a little more influenced by birds. In this alternate scenario, because Ian only scared the pigeons instead of presumably sending them to pigeon heaven, those same birds come back and they fly right in front of Erin's face. This causes her to lose balance, stumble backwards, and yep, you guessed it, fall onto the activated nail gun. So the end result is the same. Erin gets a nail gun to the face, but the reason is different. It's not spilled liquid, it's pigeon-assisted death. Then there's Ian McKinley himself, Mr. I think I'm smarter than death McKinley. In the movie, he gets bisected by a falling cherry picker during a celebration. It's a very messy, very cut in half kind of situation. But if you choose jump right for Ian during the final confrontation, things are a little different. He still gets crushed by the falling cherry picker. His death is nothing if not persistent. But instead of being torn in two, his entire body gets crushed. So less human banana split, more human pancake. Subtle difference, I know, but I'm sure it matters to, well, probably not to Ian at that point because he's dead either way. But that makes me curious. Would you rather be cut in half or turned into a pancake? Like the video and let me know down in the comments. You also have to explain your reasoning, because I don't know what is worse. And in this alternate Ian pancake ending, Wendy then throws her camera to the ground and stomps on it, which honestly, good for her. That camera has caused nothing but trouble, and she, her sister Julie, and Kevin just walk away. But then the camera, all busted up on the ground, takes one last ominous photo as the film ends. Dun dun dun! It's like even when you think you've won, you haven't. The camera always wins, or death does. It's usually one of those two. Some of you are probably thinking right now, crushed whole or bisected? What's the difference? And to that I say, you clearly haven't thought enough about the physics of being crushed by heavy machinery. It's all in the details, buddy. So Kimberly and Thomas might have met a chippy end, or maybe not thanks to Bloodlines, but what about just confidently strolling into traffic because you think you're invincible? Well, Janet tried it. This is still in the Choose Their Fate section of Final Destination 3. If after Ian McKinley meets his standard theatrical bisected end, you, the viewer, selected map, because why not, maybe there's a map to a less deadly ending, an extra scene pops up. And this scene, my fellow freaks, is a doozy for anyone keeping track of who's dead and who's just, waiting their turn. A newspaper blows off a homeless guy, which is a classic trope in horror movies where the guy sees some big information that's supposed to be deadly. Anyways, it reveals the fates of Kimberly Corman and Officer Thomas Burke. Remember them? They were the survivors from Final Destination 2, the ones who drove a van into a lake and somehow didn't drown immediately. Well, according to this newspaper article, their luck finally ran out, and it ran out in a spectacular Final Destination kind of way. The article says that Kimberly and Thomas met up again, purely by chance, which is already a bad sign in this universe. And then they got sucked into a faulty wood chipper. A wood chipper belonging to the farmer whose property they trespassed on in the previous movie, because of course it did. They were apparently trying to escape a runaway car, which in another delightful twist of fate was owned by Evan Lewis, one of the other victims from Final Destination 2 who died trying to escape a fire. It's like a 10-year high school reunion of all the Final Destination survivors. Like, what is going on? The article even mentions that Kimberly had dropped out of school and Thomas was stuck on desk duty after their first ordeal. You know, life was going great for them before they went through a wood chipper. Now, for years and years, fans took this as canon. This was it. This is how Kimberly and Thomas officially bit the dust. It was in an officially released version of the movie. Even if it was an alternate path, it made sense. It was gruesome. It tied things together. Everyone was like, yep, wood chipper, got it. But then comes Final Destination Bloodlines, the newest one. And what do? They say, actually, Kimberly Corman is still alive. Plot twist. The wood chipper death retconned, wiped from the official record, which just goes to show, even when you think you know what happened, you probably don't, especially if it was in a choose your own adventure DVD menu from 2006. Some of you are probably furious about this. The wood chipper is iconic, and I get it, but hey, let's talk about Janet now in The Final Destination. So Janet's road crossing confidence was something else, but what if, after all of that, the big bad ending involved Nick trying to be a hero and then an air conditioner? Yeah, the early ideas for The Final Destination were a trip. You know how movies sometimes film a few different endings just to see which one the test audiences hate the least? Well, The Final Destination apparently went all out. The theatrical ending we got was, well, it was an ending. Nick, Lori, and Janet are at a coffee shop, death does its thing with a runaway truck, and everyone gets splattered in glorious 3D. The end. But there were other versions that make you go, huh, well, that was a choice. One of those alternate endings involved our hero, Nick O'Bannon, trying to pull a big dramatic sacrifice. He's gonna break death's chain. He's gonna save Lori and Janet. The details are a bit fuzzy. Some say he was gonna jump off a roof, maybe holding a gas tank for extra boom. The point is, Nick tries to go out in a blaze of glory. Noble, right? Selfless even. So does it work? Does Nick's heroic sacrifice save the day? Nope. Not even a little bit, because death in this version apparently has a sense of humor, a really, really dark, Looney Tunes sense of humor. After Nick does his thing, Lori and Janet are still up next. And how do they go? A falling air conditioner just splat, crushed, like literally Wile E. Coyote getting that anvil dropped on him. It's so abrupt, it's silly, it almost feels like a parody of this movie. And if that wasn't enough, there was another variation on Nick's demise in these alternate endings. In one, he gets sucked into the gears of an escalator. Which, okay, escalators are kind of terrifying anyways, with all the moving teeth they have and they kind of yell at you. But the effects were apparently so bad, people described it as looking at PlayStation 1 style blood. You know, like those old PlayStation games where the blood was like red squares? Yeah, not exactly very artful if you tell me. So why did these endings get the boot? Well, to put it mildly, people hated them. Online comments called them worse than the theatrical version, which is saying something because the theatrical version wasn't exactly winning any Oscars. One person said the filmmakers probably realized it somehow made for an even worse movie. The CGI was garbage, and it was described as looking like a slideshow. The whole chain is broken, so here's a random air conditioner thing felt cheap and dumb. This movie apparently had a lot of reshoots because the original cut was so poorly received, so it sounds like they were just throwing stuff at the wall to see what stuck. And what stuck was, well, still not great, but apparently better than death by falling air conditioner. Some ideas seem to be so bad, even death is like, nah bruh, I'm good, let's just use the truck. So Nick's heroic sacrifice ended with an air conditioner. But what about just burning to death instead of being crushed by a giant Buddha? Yeah, Final Destination 5 had a lot of options. First up, let's talk about Isaac Palmer. Isaac, he's the guy that goes to a Chinese massage parlor hoping for a little relaxation, maybe some stress relief, wink wink. Instead, he gets a full course meal of acupuncture needles, fire, and a giant heavy statue. You know, just a typical day in a Final Destination movie. In the movie we saw, Isaac has a really bad time. Needles go where they shouldn't, a candle falls, alcohol spills, fire starts. Yeah, it's a whole thing of ouch. He almost burns to a crisp, but then at the last second, he avoids the flames. Hooray! Only to get immediately crushed by a massive falling Buddha statue. Womp womp. But here's the kicker. Originally, Isaac was supposed to burn. That was the plan. They scripted it, maybe even filmed parts of it, where he just straight up catches fire and goes out in a blaze of glory. Or just a blaze. But then they decided to reshoot it. Why? Because apparently the statue crush with the fire as a fake out was just way better, more inventive, more Final Destination-y. And you know what? They were probably right. By the 5th movie, we're all experts in Death's little games. We see the fire, we think, okay, burning, got it. But then bam, statue, keeps you on your toes. Or in Isaac's case, it turns you to a pancake. Then there's Olivia Castle. Poor Olivia, she just wanted better eyesight. She goes for LASIK surgery, and it turns into a scene that made everyone who ever considered LASIK immediately reconsider. The laser malfunctions. Her eye gets, well, let's just say it's not pretty. She panics, stumbles through a window, and falls to her death onto a parked car. It's a rough sequence. Now, there's talk of an alternate death for Olivia, but here's the anticlimactic part. According to people who've seen the deleted scenes and bonus features, there's really no big difference, like at all. One person who's a big source for this kind of info said they couldn't even really tell much of a difference in Olivia's alternate version. So if there was a different take filmed, it was probably just like a slightly different camera angle, or maybe she screamed in a different key. Minor stuff. Not every deleted scene is a game changer. Sometimes it's just the editors trying out a different flavor and they're just going, nah, the first one was fine. But speaking of surgery, did you know that Bloodlines had a whole hospital scene that got a major makeover? One of the biggest head scratchers for Bloodlines involves a character named Darlene and a hospital. Again with the hospitals, you'd think these people would learn. If you're in a Final Destination movie, maybe just like avoid medical facilities altogether. And revolving doors. Definitely avoid revolving doors. So in the trailers, we see Darlene having a really bad time with a revolving door, sparks are flying, she's trapped, it looks like she's about to get turned into a human panini. Classic Final Destination. And early reports from test screenings and leaks said that while she might survive that particular death trap, maybe Stefani and Charlie, other characters, save her. Her actual demise was coming just moments later. Apparently, a giant hospital sign, specifically the letter L from the hospital sign, was supposed to fall and crush her. So, she takes the L. Literally. This whole sequence, the revolving door scare, the falling letter L, was reportedly completely filmed but scrapped during production. They even showed bits of the revolving door part in the marketing. So why cut a scene you've already teased? Well, according to the filmmakers themselves, they realized it was too much too soon to kill that character. Apparently Darlene is interesting and she was likable, and they wanted to keep her around longer and give her a bigger role in the 3rd act, which she kinda did. She still got crushed, slashed, impaled, but okay, fair enough. Character development is important, even if it means sacrificing a perfectly good death by giant falling letter scene. Now, some internet detectives also thought the revolving door bit was maybe a little too close to Nora Carpenter's elevator decapitation in Final Destination 2. The whole getting squished by a malfunctioning door thing, or maybe they thought Darlene almost getting crushed would make it weird for her to be like driving a car later. There were even some conflicting reports, with some early leaks saying Darlene was always meant to survive the door and die by an axe later, while the producers said the door sign combo was her intended death. It's all very mysterious because none of this actually happens. This is deleted scenes business anyways, but it just shows even some stuff you see in the trailer isn't gonna make it into the movie. So speaking more about Bloodlines, there's a character in the film named Howard. Now Howard, in an early draft, was apparently going to meet his end at a place called Howard's Funhouse. I kid you not. Howard's Funhouse. It was supposed to be one of those family restaurants / entertainment emporiums, with bowling alleys, bumper cars, ball pits, basically a germaphobe's nightmare, and a perfect playground to die. Imagine the possibilities: death by rogue bowling ball, impalement by a bumper car, suffocation by plastic balls. But alas, Howard's Funhouse of Horrors was not to be. The idea got scrapped because apparently it felt out of place after Iris's funeral. Iris is grandma if you haven't seen the movie, and I guess having a wacky funhouse death scene right after a sad funeral was just a bit too much tonal whiplash, even for this franchise. Then there was Eric. In a previous version of the script, Eric was a live streamer guy, because of course he was. Every movie needs a live streamer guy now. It's like a law, we gotta relate to Gen Z somehow. And his death was supposed to happen while he was filming a virtual reality gaming session. We don't don't know the specifics, but you can just imagine the potential, right? Maybe his VR headset electrocutes him. Maybe he gets so into the game he doesn't see the real world piano falling over his head. I don't know. The possibilities are endless and mostly are terrifying. But this idea also got tossed as the script evolved. Poor Eric denied his chance to die for the contents. Anyways, he died by a big magnet. And the list keeps going on. There was Julia, who was obsessed with monster trucks, and her original death involved, surprise, a monster truck explosion. Penny Kidd, who was going to get taken out by a piano moving truck. Mrs. Fuller, destined for a house fire, an unnamed receptionist who was scripted to die in an elevator accident. It's like they had a dartboard with random characters, another dartboard with random causes of death, and just went to town. Okay, Penny Kidd and piano truck, perfect. Most of these were just early draft ideas. They were just sparks of creativity that fizzled out as the story took shape. And if you've seen the movie, none of these really ended up happening, and a lot were very different from these early stage concepts. So apparently there's a lot of different ways to die in Final Destination, and we haven't even seen half of them. If you've liked this video, make sure to comment down below which scene you want to see the most out of all these deleted scenes, and like the video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Let me know if you want another video on this topic as well, because there's lots of deleted scenes to choose from. Bloodlines has a ton more to talk about. So let me know if you want that down in the comments below as well. And if you want to watch more videos on Final Destination, I have another one up already, which you can watch on the screen right now.